this video will be in two parts. The first bit will be on Dipu Chandra Das, the Bangladeshi who got lynched so cruelly a few days ago for being a Hindu and apparently for saying a simple, honest truth that all religions are the same and that God can have multiple names. We can see his killing, the brutality, the barbarism. The videos are there on X. Now the question is, what is to be done? Firstly, one cannot expect the Americans or the Brits or the French to provide us any solutions or even any condemnation. I am sure the government of India will act at the opportune time and in the appropriate manner. I am also certain that the mandarins in South Block, even right now as I speak, are engaged with this issue and will tackle it in due course of time. It is important because this has happened right at our doorstep. Bangladesh is in a mess. It is in complete turmoil. And this is a very serious situation because I have lived through, I was not in the war, but I was very closely observing the 1971 conflict when our forces, our government ensured that Bangladesh was created. These are definitely poor times, bad times for Bangladesh, and a matter of great concern for us. One cannot condemn strongly enough the manner or the necessity of murdering this young Hindu boy. Now, geopolitics is not my territory of expertise. I will move on to something which is more in my range, that is medicine. Here, I want to tell you of two big studies. These are some of my favorite studies. They are very important because they are very simple to understand and have great practical value in leading a long, healthy life. The first one is the Potsdam trial, which was published in the archives of internal medicine more than a decade back. This was in people, 23,000 people, Germans, between the ages of 35 and 65 years who were followed up for almost, 7 years, right? And these people were instructed to follow 4 simple rules of lifestyle modification. That is, not to smoke, exercise at least half an hour a day, eat healthy food, and keep their weight in check, right? Now, what was observed by the researchers? They found that the people who followed these 4 tricks, that is not smoking, exercising, having a healthy diet, in this case largely vegetarian, and keeping the weight in check, the observers found that there was a reduction in diabetes by 90%. Yes, the number is huge. They reduced diabetes by 90% as opposed to people who were not following these rules. Reduced a heart attack by 80%, reduced stroke by 50%, and reduced even cancer. I repeat, they reduced cancer by 35%. So this was as far as I am concerned, a phenomenal study. You just follow these 4 things: exercise, eat healthy, keep your weight in check, and you don't smoke, and you get to get these benefits. Now, what is a healthy diet? Once again, I come to a study which I like very much. This was published 4 years back in the European Heart Journal. This is called the Pure Diet Trial. This included 145,000 people over 21 countries. And this study found that if people ate these 6 types of food, right? 6 types. If they had these 6 types of food stuff, then they significantly reduced mortality and significantly reduced heart attack. What are these 6 foodstuffs? Again, very simple: fruits, vegetables, nuts like walnuts, almonds, pistachios, legumes like lentils, that is our dal, beans. Number 4 would be fish, right? So you have fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, fish, and high-fat dairy products, that is cheese and full cream milk. So people who had these 6 foodstuffs, by and large, definitely significantly reduced deaths and heart attacks. You can always remove the fish if you are a vegetarian. So then you have you can take fruits, vegetables, milk, legumes, and nuts. So the message is very simple, that if you eat a healthy diet, exercise for just half an hour a day, keep your weight in check, and if you do not smoke, then you lead a long and healthy life, and you can substantially reduce a number of major chronic diseases. Now, why am I raising these points? I am raising these points because I am very intrigued by a study which has been published in the current issue of the New England Journal of Medicine. This is a study which is comparing tirzepatide with duglatide. Now, what is tirzepatide? Tirzepatide is also called Mounjaro. It is a mixture of 2 incretin agonists. One is a glucagon-like peptide agonist, that is a GLP receptor agonist, plus what is called a glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide, that's a tongue twister. But the fact remains that Mounjaro or tirzepatide is a mixture of these 2 products, and it is used for diabetes and for reduction of weight. Now, they compared this drug in a randomized manner with duglatide, which is a GLP receptor agonist only. This is a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. It has 13,000 diabetics. Now, the important thing to remember is that these diabetics have some kind of a cardiovascular problem. Either they've had a heart attack, or they have been admitted for angina, or they've had a revascularization procedure, or they probably had a stroke. So we have diabetics with a previous or a very high risk of developing a cardiovascular problem, and you divide them into 2 groups. In one group you give tirzepatide, and in the other group you give GLP receptor agonist, and they found after a period of 3 years follow-up that there was no difference in the clinical outcomes of death, myocardial infarction, and stroke. So what the researchers are inferring or concluding for us is that tirzepatide is as good as duglatide, right? So that is the inference, that is the conclusion. Then the question arises as to how good is duglatide. So for that you have to go to the study which was published 6 years back in the Lancet. I will provide the links. And the study on duglitide, which is a GLP receptor agonist, included about 10,000 diabetics, again with these cardiovascular risk factors. Their glycated hemoglobin was about, I think, 7.4%. There was a follow-up of 5 years. 75% of these diabetics were males, 25% were females. The average age was 64 years. Now, these demographics were the same for the study which is present in this week's issue of the New England Journal of Medicine. Now, coming back to the original, the study with duglitide, there the researchers concluded that after a follow-up of 5 years, there was actually no difference in deaths or heart attacks. And yet they concluded that the drug was good because they used the composite of death, stroke, and heart attacks. But the fact is that if you read the data carefully, you find that there is absolutely no difference in deaths or a heart attack. Which brings us to the question as to why one would use a drug which not only is expensive but is also associated with very serious adverse effects. I have already written a Substack on the adverse effects of semaglutide, that is Ozempic, and that applies also for tirzepatide, that is Mounjaro. I will not talk about those adverse effects now, but the point is that these researchers found, again, that more people using these drugs had adverse effects of the GI tract, that is intestinal side effects, as compared to placebo. Now remember, duglitide was compared with a placebo, whereas tirzepatide has been compared with duglitide. Now to begin with, in the duglitide study, there is no difference in deaths, there is no difference in myocardial infarction. The number of people who had serious GI adverse effects was about 47% compared to 34% in the placebo group, right? And these GI side effects are nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and even paralysis of the intestine. So, to conclude, you begin with a drug, compare it to a placebo, and despite the fact that there is no reduction in death or myocardial infarction, you conclude that the drug is good, and then start advertising the drug. Now you compare that drug with a best-selling drug right now, because that is tirzepatide or Mounjaro, and you find that Mounjaro is not inferior to this drug. So actually, what you are seeing is a brazen attempt at misleading the public. You have an expensive medicine with serious adverse effects, which does not reduce mortality, which does not reduce the chances of you having a heart attack, and yet the data is being presented in a cosmetic fashion, and the conclusions are being contrived that these drugs are effective. I mean, it is common sense that if you apply simple lifestyle modifications, such as which I have already described to you, were applied in the Potsdam trial, that is, if you exercise, eat healthy, keep your weight in check, and you do not smoke, you substantially reduce your chances of having a heart attack or mortality or stroke or diabetes. But of course, the Potsdam trial was not a randomized study, that was an observational study. But common sense dictates that instead of using an expensive drug which is connected with many adverse effects, it would be better if you applied simple lifestyle modification to prevent chronic diseases. I understand that Many people in Hollywood are using Mounjaro and Ozempic. Many people in Bollywood are using these drugs, and the drugs are now available in India, although they are a bit expensive. But I would not recommend these drugs either to prevent cardiovascular outcomes or to reduce weight. Thank you very much.